Dear students, so welcome back to the tutorial again. So in this tutorial we're going to talk about DNS or domain name system. So DNS is actually the aftermath of ARP. So basically what I mean is, to understand the DNS you should understand ARP first. Okay, so I guess you have already completed the tutorials regarding ARP, and now so let's begin the DNS part here. So DNS is known as domain name system, and it is basically an integral part of internet communication in our current world. So well, what does DNS mean actually? So usually if you think that whenever we want to browse a website, we browse it by writing like www.google.com or www like facebook.com, but think about it, like in the internet actually doesn't know these names like facebook.com or google.com or maybe like yahoo.com. Internet doesn't actually know this type of names. So internet only works with IP addresses. So if the internet knows only IP addresses, then how does it actually understand this facebook.com or google.com, etc.? So usually what actually happens is that the internet understands only the IP addresses, but we human beings actually don't really are not really used to remembering those IP addresses. For example, if you are to remember, for example, let's say that you are actually using for about 30 websites in a day, and this goes every day, 7 days a week, and 30 days a month, and 365 days a year. So you're using like about like maybe like 200 or 300 websites in a year, or maybe even more. All right, so it's really difficult to remember all the IP addresses for those websites. Okay, so just think about it. If you want to remember the Facebook's IP address, or maybe Google's IP address, or maybe Yahoo's IP addresses, only remembering these three IP addresses is already difficult. So remembering a lot of IP addresses for a lot of websites is definitely extremely difficult. So that's why there has been a system which was developed for the convenience of human beings, so that they can easily actually use the internet. So that's where actually DNS comes. So DNS or domain name system is a protocol by which we can actually convert those names like facebook.com or google.com to an equivalent IP address. Okay, so you see that humans understand the names, they don't know, or they don't remember the IP addresses, but the internet actually knows only the IP addresses. It does not understand the names. So to keep an integration between the internet and the human beings perspective, so the DNS was actually invented. So what DNS does is that it actually maps those names, those websites names like facebook.com, google.com, into their equivalent IP addresses, so that the specific query which is being searched by a user can be searched correctly. So let's say let's just see an example here. So let's say your favorite website might have an IP address like 64.202.189.170. all right, but this is obviously very not easy to remember. It's really tough and it's really difficult, and even if you can remember this one thing, then if you want to remember like 30 of those things, then it becomes extremely difficult and completely unrealistic. However, a domain name, something like maybe like you know, best domain name ever.com or something like that, so this is, on the other hand, is extremely easy to remember. So that's how people can easily recognize and remember a website. So DNS actually syncs up these domain names with that IP address. So that's why I actually told DNS actually maps those names to specific IP addresses, which actually enables humans to use memorable domain names, while the computers on the internet can use the IP addresses related to them. So Hopefully you get the gist of domain name system or DNS. So this is the just the theory part. So now we're going to see how DNS works in case of real life simulation. So we're going to see it in Cisco Packet Tracer.